What's a great children's book without a positive message? The whole reason that I got started illustrating and writing children's books is because I really want to always put positive messaging out there into the world. I refuse to write anything that can't have a positive message. So almost exactly a year ago, I embarked on a mission to start writing my own children's books. At the time, I only thought that there would be one. There is now two. My whole mission to write children's books came as, a passing remark, actually from someone that I know who said, "I'm surprised you haven't written a children's book yet." And then I thought, yeah, why haven't I written a children's book yet? So I always kind of had that seed planted in my head. The funny thing about the way it all came to fruition is that the character, I always thought to myself, I have to come up with a great character for a children's book if I'm going to write one, because I don't want to do an animal. I don't want to do some weird figure nobody knows about. I didn't really want to do people because that's been done 1,000 million times, just like animals and everything else too. So I thought, I got to come up with something really unique. What's the character gonna be? And funnily enough, years and years ago, I was writing a blog post about bullying. And I was relating the concept of bullying and how people deal with it to a bicycle wheel. And I used this bicycle wheel analogy to describe the fact that, the center of the hub is you, and the spokes are all the different elements of your life, whether that be your home, your school, your sports, your extracurriculars, your music, your passions, your interests, your family, your friends, and so forth. And the outer wheel, so like the treads around the wheel, is everything all joined together that makes up your entire world. And then I said, let's say the wheel gets muddy. So all the mud that comes onto a bicycle wheel, as we know, that would, rust out some spokes, make things slow down, make things more difficult for riding. And I said the mud is the bad stuff. So it's the bullying, it's the bad treatment from someone else, it's you trying to conquer and deal with all of these things, and maybe that even results in mental health struggles and so forth. So I had this whole concept, and I completely forgot about that blog post, but I read it back at some point before this whole children's book idea came to fruition, and I thought, hey, what if I could create a children's book and the main character is a bicycle wheel? That could be cool. So I named the wheel Spokes, and I embarked on my first children's book mission of writing. And I created the book called Muddy Spokes, available on Amazon and all kinds of other outlets online, but Amazon's probably the easiest one for you to get that book. Little plug there, shameless plug. And this book takes readers through a journey where the wheel, Spokes, gets really muddy and wakes up all excited for the day ahead, but then things don't go quite as perfectly as planned. There are some mean wheels. There is a garbage truck that splashes a lot of mud. There is a wrong turn and getting lost. And there is running seriously late to school. So there's all these things that happen, and the wheel gets muddier and muddier as time goes on in the book. And my whole message here is that we all get a little muddy sometimes. It's what we do next that counts. And that's right on the cover of my book. That's my little subtitle. And I think this is so important for children to resonate with a message like that, because there's no such thing as perfection in this life. There's no such thing as never having any problems whatsoever. We're all faced with challenges and problems on sometimes a daily basis, sometimes a million problems in one day. Other days might go a little more smoothly. The point is, we all get muddy. It's what we do next that counts. So are we gonna sit there and wallow in our muddiness and never think about the next step or the next solution? Or are we gonna be proactive? Are we gonna say, okay, I got muddy, I can deal with this, it's going to be okay. And then can we move on productively from there? Can we take a next step that perhaps deals with that muddiness, gets us clean again, gets us sparkly clean and riding smoothly down the road again? Get it? There are two main messages and teachings that I would love for children to get from that first children's book that I wrote, Muddy Spokes. Number one, resilience, and number two, resourcefulness. I believe that these are two of the most imperative qualities that we can impart on our children these days, because life is complicated and there's going to be things that happen. Are they able to pick themselves back up? Are they able to dust themselves off? Are they able to get clean again after getting super, super muddy after a difficult day? And part of that is being resourceful. So if they're in trouble, do they know how to ask for help? Do they have the guts to ask for help? Do they have a support network around them of family and friends and teachers and coaches that they might be able to turn to get them out of whatever mess that they are in? This is critical. And so I tried to give those messages a life through this book. And throughout this journey in the book, there's also comedy along the way. There's clever puns that I've come up with to do with the wheel. And I've heard some really great positive feedback about that, and I hope to keep it rolling, pun intended, into other books as well. And I wanted to also talk about my process, about how I did this. So the funny story is that I've been a writer for 15, 16 years now, professionally. Writer my whole life, really. I think I started when I was really young writing short stories. But I've been writing professionally for 15 years. So when I wrote Muddy Spokes, I thought to myself, I'm going to write this children's book and then I'm going to get an illustrator to illustrate it and bring it to life for me. But then as I rounded the bend on the editing and the polishing and the proofreading of my manuscript for Muddy Spokes, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be so fantastic if on the cover of Muddy Spokes, it didn't say written by Katie Cooperman, illustrated by some other name? What if it said written and illustrated by Katie Cooperman? Could I do this? Am I capable of this? I would love to write and illustrate my children's book. There was just one problem. I had no idea how to be an illustrator. No idea. I will tell you that I can draw, so I have a background of that. I took many art classes when I was a kid and into my teens, and so I can draw. I can sketch, I can draw. So I guess I had that in my favor, but how was I going to then digitize those drawings? Because what was really funny also is that I did this sketch of what I thought the cover might look like, and I gave it to a book interior formatter that I came across and that I've used for other books in the past. And I said, can you put this on a cover and digitize this for me and let me see what this would look like? And in my mind, I was visualizing that this would look perfectly crisp lines, everything. Somehow she would saturate the color so it didn't look like pencil crayons, and bring it to life in a way that looked real and awesome and exciting for readers, and a wicked cover that I'd be proud of. And it didn't. It really fell flat. It didn't look anything like what I envisioned in my mind. Then I thought, well, there has to be a way. People have to be sketching and then somehow digitizing this properly so it looks more crisp and professional and wonderful. And so I embarked on my whole research journey. I started to figure out that there were different ways to do this. I could either become an illustrator that did everything on the computer, so creating all strokes, all pictures, everything, all within the computer, no hand drawing whatsoever. Then I thought to myself, that sucks. That's not what I want to do at all. I want to use my hands. I want to draw the good old-fashioned way. I want to get back into that whole art scene. And the funny thing too about embarking on this journey is that for years I had been thinking to myself, you should draw again, you should paint again, you should get art back in your life, even if it's just something you do on the side of your writing to kind of spark more creativity. So it's just so interesting how it all came to fruition, and this is sort of my art outlet now. So I came across this incredible blog post that gave certain steps to take a sketch, then create a sketch into an inked line art drawing, is what it's called. So I literally used ink pens, very fine ink pens, to take a sketch. So I would have fun with the sketch first, create it all out, make that beautiful pencil outline, my favorite part, I think. And then I would take that and create an inked line drawing out of that sketch. So now we're talking about very crisp black lines to define everything. Then you take your inked line art and you take a picture of it. And then from there, you take that and you upload it onto your computer and you place it within Adobe Illustrator. And here's the coolest part, because I used another drawing app before getting into Adobe Illustrator, and you actually had to hand trace your drawing to do what's called vectorization and vectorize that drawing to become something crisp on the computer that you can play around with and resize and reshape and move around. And I was thinking to myself, that's going to take forever. And I said, you know what, I'm going to sample these different apps and see what I like the best. And when I did Adobe Illustrator, there's just one button, image, trace, and it traces your entire inked line art drawing and becomes a vector instantaneously. Gotta love technology. And once you have that, then you can manipulate that, put it within your page wherever you want, resize it, turn it, shape it, everything. And then what you would have is just inked line art in a vectorized form on a piece of paper, on the artboard inside Adobe Illustrator. And then the really fun part is bringing that to life with color. So you can color things and fill out different spots, color different areas, bring that whole drawing to life until you finally have a finished product. And that is when all the magic happened. When I saw, it took me a long time, and I did a lot of YouTube and I did a lot of ChatGPT to figure out, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I add color? How do I add this drawing in here? How do I reshape and size? How do I fix things when they go wrong? How do I manipulate lines when they're not perfect? It was a massive learning curve, and it was a great challenge for me, and I really enjoyed every single part of it. It's now part of my regular work life. Every time there's another book to write, I go back to this, and I'm getting better by the day and faster, and I love it. So I'm so thankful to have come across that blog post that said, here's one way that you can draw by hand and then still bring those drawings to life in a digitized, professional, awesome, crisp looking format. So I ended up illustrating Muddy Spokes all by myself. It took a long time, it took about 6 months, but I did meet my deadline initially, which was June of 2024. That's when the book got launched. It had a raging launch, which I was so thrilled about. It reached #1 bestseller in a couple of different categories on Amazon, #5, #7, #8, and other categories. It was really exciting, and I loved that whole process. And I'm now on to #2. So I've decided to make it a series. So it's going to be a whole Spokes series, and #2 book will be launched before the holidays 2024, which I'm also really excited about. And that book is called Speedy Spokes. Same process. I noticed that everything was a lot more streamlined this time around, and I was faster and better at the illustrating, so I managed to do it way faster than I thought that I could. Originally, I set myself a deadline of the middle of November, so I beat my own deadline, which is really exciting. And I've really enjoyed the entire process of bringing these books to life. And I really, really, really believe that every book should have a wicked message, a wicked positive message, even if it's not always crystal clear, which I have chose to make it with my Spoke series. So there is a part at the end of the book, hopefully kids don't find it too boring, but there is a part at the end of every book where I say, picture your life as a bicycle wheel. And then I explain certain things and bring the whole message to life in that way, so they can visualize themselves as a bicycle wheel for a second, and then take it from there into incorporating whatever that message may be. So for Muddy Spokes, it is all about the fact that we all run into problems sometimes and we all get muddy. For Speedy Spokes, it's all about feeling overwhelmed and having super racing thoughts and a very fast motion feeling inside your mind, and the fact that that can make you feel very overwhelmed, and how to slow that down and how to reground yourself and come to a more calming place so that you can deal with whatever it is that you're racing about. And there'll be one more coming soon. Well, there'll be lots more, but I have another one coming soon because the next two, so Speedy Spokes is inspired by my son, and it's called Spokes Blows a Tire, and that's inspired by my daughter. And that's going to be coming up in spring of 2025. And so that one is all about getting to the point where you freak out about something in life, whether it's running late or something doesn't go your way, and you immediately go, and then how to make sure that you don't actually blow that tire. How can you get to the point where, yeah, you might be mad, frustrated, worked up, whatever it may be. How can we make it so that you don't actually explode? So that one will be coming soon. And I am so loving this children's writing journey. And that is how I bring all my illustrations to life. And the writing process is pretty straightforward for me. I've been writing for so many years for clients, for myself. So there's a lot of writing, there's a lot of editing, there's revisiting and polishing, and that's a whole process in and of itself. But that's always step one. And then once I have all my pages mapped out into exactly how I'm going to break down the content on every single page, then I start illustrating and bringing everything to life. Sketch, inked line art, into the computer, color, ta-da. If you want to learn more about one of my other books, my very first book I ever wrote actually, which is a young adult novel about bullying and mental health, you'll see that on the next screen. So be sure to click that and you can watch, and I'll see you there.